Okay, I might have asked for a hot shower, but I'd settle for a bucket and relatively clean and only mildly radioactive water and a sponge. And I started watching the dust, grime, and tears off my face. I stared at the sponge, thinking of what to do next. She'd have her chat, I'd get my data, we'd leave, she'd tell one of his ponies where to find the targeting talismans. As a show of good faith, they brought Glory her gear and my braces. The rest of my stuff, on the other hand, they probably dropped from a quarter mile just to make sure that they were away before I was locked up and loaded. Please tell me you're not trying to think of ways to kill a pony with a sponge, Glory said in concern as she nuzzled my neck. Huh? What? No. Besides, I'd have to shove it really far down their throat. The bucket, on the other hand, if Glory kicked out the bottom and smashed it flat, it'd have a nice jagged edge, effective against eyes, and Glory started kissing along my spine, and thoughts of weaponized sponges and buckets went flying out of my head. Oh, yes, this was nice. This was very nice. Except, Glory, I don't think... What was the matter with me? We had privacy. I was probably the cleanest I was going to get in a long while. Goddesses knew I needed it after that little adventure with Rarity and Vanity. But for some reason, my mind was telling me that this was wrong and I should stop it. It was official. I'd gone batshit crazy. The gray Pegasus rolled onto my back and kissed along my chest before she looked at me in the eyes. I'm sorry. But I don't think I can do this. She just waited and I fidgeted, turning away. I don't deserve... I trailed off lamely, unable to finish. Oh, I see, she said calmly, then seemed to think about something. Finally, she looked me in the eye. Do you trust me? Huh? Of course, I murmured, shocked that she even had to ask. Absolutely and completely? She pressed as she smiled at me. I nodded, and she dug through her bags for a second, withdrew a blindfold, and tied it into place. Don't touch it, she said firmly. Okay. Then she was off the bed and rifling through her saddlebags. I fought hard not to peek as she returned to the bed. Then she pressed my forelegs over my head through the gaps in the bed, and my ears twitched at the sound of hoof cuffs being locked around my legs. Glory? What are you doing? I gasped, and then felt my rear legs spread quite far apart, and cuffed to the hoof frail at the bottom of the bed. She moved over to me and whispered in my ear, "Shh, trust me." And a rubber ball was pressed into my mouth and tied in place around my muzzle. I couldn't move. I couldn't see. Couldn't speak. But, sweet Celestia save me, I could feel. And what was inflicted upon me was some of the most intense feeling of my entire life. Some sour, rational, sane part of my mind grumbled that it was no time for this. That part was grabbed by the rest of my brain, beaten with rubber hoses, and tossed into that closet in the back of my mind. I crested, wailing into the gag, and she didn't relent. Glory had to have been related to Vanity. Somehow. She paused only to remove the gag and let me catch my breath before silencing me with a very lovely something else. I returned the favor in desperation, rewarded with noises from her bliss and the feeling that I was a very good pony. When we finished, she'd returned my sight to me, and I was quite confused and exceptionally buttery inside. I wanted to ask where she learned to do such things, but the taste of mare had completely overrisen my ability to think. Good thing, too, because my brain was trying to come up with all kinds of reasons for why we'd done was wrong and undeserving. I was a bad pony who'd almost got her killed. But that voice was dulled by the fact that Glory had done almost everything. She decided it, and done it. And so that sour pony lurked in the back of my mind, murmuring bad things about me. She washed for a second time, and herself, before finally unlocking me from the bed. I had to admit I was so relaxed that it felt like all the rest of my bones had changed into rubber too. Wow? Okay. So at the moment, complex sentences were beyond me. Never done like that before? She said, seeming quite happy herself. I shook my head vigorously back and forth. Like it? I nearly strained my neck, nodding. She gave a pleased nicker. Oh, I'm so glad it doesn't mess it up then. Dusk thought you'd like it. Did I mention how much I loved Glory's eldest sister right then? Really, lovely mare. But where did you get that? Oh, in that shop? She grinned sheepishly, blushing. So adorable. Then I arched a brow. Did you get anything else? Maybe. She replied in a playful tone that screamed yes. Then she gave a little murr and kissed me softly. If you're a good mare, I'll let you find out. Oh, okay, I'll be good. I'd be the goodest, bestest, nicest mare ever. Yes, sirree. Gotta say, that was unexpected, I said with a flush as we cuddled together. Glory seemed quite amused by my embarrassment. I thought that you'd done this tons of times. Are you kidding? Mom would have thrown me into detention and sprayed me. I got to have nice, predictable, scandal-free sex. It was every pony else who got all of the bizarre kinks. I had to admit, I was a little worried. I'd never ever had sex like that before. I was still tingly. It was as if I'd discovered an entirely new part of myself, but was just a little leery about getting to know her better. The one part I couldn't shake was that I liked it. I liked it a lot, and from the look on Glory's face, she had too. I felt that emotional whiplash setting in. A few hours ago, I thought she was dead. Now I was left feeling giddy, that I'd been cuffed to a bed. Maybe I should try cooling this down. Get some control. Something. Then I caught her purple eye and saw just how screwed I was. Oh, goddesses. She was helping me put my leg braces back on when there was a knock and a midnight blue mare with a starburst cutie mark poked her head in. We're ready, Morning Glory. Glory nodded. Thank you, North Star. The gray mare helped me to my hooves, and we trot through the weather station. There were 8 or 9 Pegasi working on imported terminals and checking paperwork. Most of them gave at least a glance in my direction as we passed. On the wall was a black banner of a purple eye in the center of a vaguely shield-shaped dark green cloud, with a bright green lightning bolt behind it. Around the edges was the motto, Enclave Intelligence, protecting against threats from below and above, within and without. Threats from above? I asked with a little smile as we entered the small room with a terminal and camera set up on a table. My hoof stood calmly in the corner, out of sight of the camera. Enclave Intelligence is supposed to be ready for anything, North Star said softly. We're not the military. We don't have raptors and siege platforms. The biggest things we're allowed are vertibucks. We're supposed to be smarter and sneakier than our enemies. We're supposed to cheat. She murmured souredly. Of course, we'd be able to much more effectively if we didn't have to approve every last op with Navarro. Can't believe they're restricting our flights over the Everfree in Philadelphia, now of all times. I looked at her in surprise. It sounds almost like the Ministry of Awesome. She suddenly grinned in approval. I never expected a dirt sider to notice that. If it wouldn't completely tick off Navarro, we'd still use the name. Navarro was the base for all of Equestria and Skyguard after Cloudsdale was bombed. Thunderhead and Shadowwell Tower were the Ministry of Awesome's headquarters. Oh, sure. Every pony thought that Canterlot office was the main one, even when it turned out it was a warehouse, just as Rainbow Dash planned. She sighed, looking pensive. If things had gone a little differently, every pony in the intelligence service would be a Dashite. If Rainbow Dash had just waited. But she gave a little shake of her head. But you branded Glory, I pointed out. Burned off her cutie mark and we did what we had to. Would you prefer to war? She asked bluntly. Point taken. Lighthooves brought his wing across his lips. Ladies. The terminal screen flickered for a moment, then condensed into the image of a middle-aged buck just approaching elderly status. His coat was a rich plum, and his purple mane was shot with gray. I noted, with a touch of concern, he also had an eye patch covering his left eye, and the left side of his face rippled with old scars that hadn't quite worn away. His gray eye widened in shock as he half rose to his hooves. Morning. Hello, Father. I was surprised from the formal tone she adopted. I'm glad to see you're well. He slammed his hoof to the desk. Pissing rainbows, Morning, don't give me that. What the hell have you been up to? First a confession that you're a Dashite, then Dusk reporting you've been killed without verification, and now a report that you... But he trailed off as she shifted. She flushed and turned the block to view her stub. Where are you? I'll fly down there right now myself and pick you up. No, Father. I'm fine. You're missing a wing, Morning. That's the opposite of fine, he roared. You're coming home, and that's final. No, Father. I'm not. She scowled with her own counter. There's things going on right now. I don't give a thundering fart what things are going on, he said with another imperious slam of his hoof. You are coming home right now where it's safe. Then we can see about getting rid of those scars. You can't tell me what to do, Father. I'm not a filly anymore. Glory shouted at him with a very unglory-like scowl. You're just like your mother, he murmured darkly. Stop being so stubborn. I'm doing important things, Father, she snapped back. Stop telling me what to do. I'm a Dashite, okay? I might love Thunderhead and believe in the Enclave, but my home is down here now. The mare I love is down here. Oh, what was that burning smell? Ah, it was me blushing. He seethed but sat back and slumped a little. You disappear for a month, and the first thing we do when I see you is scream at each other. He shook his head with a deep sigh. I've been yelling at security and your sister for weeks now, ever since that forged confession popped up. Now I get an update and it's you. Sorry, Father. I know you want to keep me safe, but I'm not your little sunrise anymore, she replied. She glanced over at Lighthooves, then back at the screen. I'm here with an operative Lighthooves. He says that things are bad between Nevaru and Thunderhead. Really bad. And the VC is driving it. Tell him Lighthooves burned off your cutie marks, Glory. I wanted to shout it, but Northstar looked at me and shook her head slowly. I bit my tongue. Things have been shaky ever since your mother. That's nothing new. Nevaru will call us petty names and sulk till a harvest goes bad or a talisman breaks. Then they'll change their tune. It's been the same old dance for the last 200 years. She glanced at the crimson buck before looking at the screen again. He says otherwise, that the military is looking for a fight, like when Fiendfire attacked, and that Thunderhead might be the next target. He says they might try and kill you, Father. He harumphed. There's at least 20 ponies I can think of who want me dead. It comes with being a politician. Glory started to say something, but he coughed and raised his wing. I won't hear any more conspiracy nonsense. Nevaru needs Thunderhead. They'll huff and puff and snap their wings, but when the sun sets, they'll be the ones asking for help. What if they're not, though? I asked, as I stepped up next to Glory. She stared hard at me, her feathers ruffling. Her father glared at me, and I wondered if his remaining eye could disintegrate me through the terminal. Mr. Sky Striker, I grew up in a stable. We were attacked, and afterwards, I thought there was no threat. But in the end, every pony I knew and loved was dead. Is the risk of Thunderhead worth more than scrap metal and blueberries? He looked at me in such a way that I realized I was in trouble. The exact same expression was on Glory's face as well. Big trouble. Lighthooves looked as if all he was doing was trying not to laugh, as he just smiled. Morning, Glory. Who's this? His tone was light, but I suspected that his death gaze was merely charging up.